Dog whistling is when somebody drops a coded message to get you to react, kind of like how a dog would react to a dog whistle. That whistle just hits differently in the dog's ears. And if you don't know about dog whistles, you might be tempted to think there's something wrong with the dog for reacting the way they do. And it's really important to understand this tactic for what it is. So here today, we're going to cover 5 examples of dog whistling. And once you've heard them all, I want you to comment which, if any, you've experienced firsthand in a relationship with a narcissist. So the first example of dog whistling we're going to talk about here today is the needling comment. So to understand this, let's look at the word needling. In the context of a relationship and behavior, needling means to annoy someone, especially by repeated criticism. Sound familiar? So here's an example from the Cambridge Dictionary to illustrate what needling looks like. His mother was always needling him about getting a job. So it's kind of like nagging or bugging, but it could also be criticizing. And when needling is used as a dog whistle, the narcissist will drop a word or phrase that brings up all the emotions that you felt during moments when they've been needling you in the past. So now let's look at a more targeted example of how this might go down in a relationship with a narcissist. So at a dinner party, a husband mentions how his wife made him fried eggs for breakfast. Seems innocent, right? So everyone in earshot thinks he's praising his wife for being thoughtful. But they don't have the full story. You see, the wife decided to make her husband eggs, even though she had 100 other things to do, because she thought it might help avoid the inevitable early morning tantrum, which she also didn't have time for, by the way. And in an attempt to get it all done, she anxiously began multitasking and left the eggs too long in the frying pan. They burned, and it led to one of the worst tantrums she's seen, and so much berating. She absolutely was not in the mood to go to some dinner party, but here she was. And here he was, bringing up the egg. It was about all she could stand. And this tactic works really well when a narcissist wants to paint you as the abusive person. Because what did he say? He just said fried eggs, right? There's nothing that anyone on the outside could really see as wrong or abusive. But because there was so much pain and so much criticism around those fried eggs, the wife hears the words coming from his mouth and she instantly feels belittled again. And she might even start to feel a little angry. So she's going to react in some way. Even if she tries to suppress it, people are going to notice that her whole demeanor is probably going to change in that moment. And it's going to look like there's something off with her. So now I know at least some of you have experienced the needling comment as a dog whistle to trigger reactive abuse. If it all sounds familiar, let us know in the comments, what was your fried egg moment? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina, and I'm a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. And as we go through this list, if you can relate and want some extra support to get beyond this relationship, check the link in the description for more on one-on-one coaching with me. So the next dog whistle we're about to talk about is the thinly veiled threats. And when this is used as a dog whistle, it's usually because the actual threat, the unveiled threat, has already been made. But in public, the narcissist might bring it up like an innocent question or an innocent comment because that unveiled threat was made in private and no one else knows about it. But they bring it up subtly, knowing full well that it will trigger you and you will respond in anger or fear. And you're really going to want to jump into fight mode to defend yourself, to defend your stuff, to defend your peace. So let's look at an example. During a divorce mediation, the wife calmly asks who will care for their dog, Malcolm. So to the mediators, this seems like a reasonable and innocent question about pet custody. However, the husband recognizes it as a threat because he remembers his wife's previous warning that he'd lose his beloved dog if he proceeded with legal action against her. So to the mediators, it seems like he's getting emotional and jumping into attack mode based solely on this innocent question. And it seems like he's the one who's unstable and unreasonable. And that could really work against him in this situation. So if you've dealt with this before, I'd imagine this story brings up a lot of emotions. But if you don't mind sharing, let us know in the comments how it went down for you. So anyone who's in the thick of it right now might get a feel for what to look out for. And if you're finding this helpful, validating, or even relatable, go ahead and hit that like button now. So now let's talk about the hidden guilt trip. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with guilt tripping. It's something that you're very likely to experience in a relationship with a narcissist. So the guilt tripping itself is not necessarily a dog whistle, but when the guilt tripping is referenced in a coded way in front of an audience, then it becomes a dog whistle. And it's very likely to trigger a reaction from you. So let's look at an example to make sure this one's crystal clear. So a boyfriend tells his friends how happy he is for his girlfriend's recent promotion. And then he throws in a little comment that he misses their quality time together. And while he seems supporting and loving to his friends, the girlfriend knows that she has spent hours upon hours of arguing and trying to convince her boyfriend that this promotion was a good thing. And she's also endured so many guilt trips that were not hidden at all. They were way out in the open. And she was even starting to question if she was being selfish for taking this promotion. So when the boyfriend mentions it publicly to his friends in this way, it sounds like he's a great partner, but she knows better. And so when he brings it up in front of a crowd, it's instantly going to transform her back into that place where she feels like she has to defend herself, and to where she's feeling guilty and feeling like she has to manage his emotions. And just like all reactive abuse, he can sit back and look innocent while she gets emotional and appears unhinged. In front of his friends who love him, she might look like she's attacking him for no good reason. Poor guy to have to deal with someone like that, right? All right, so now let's talk about the innocent comparison. This is when a narcissist will make a comparison that seems very innocent and maybe even cute or funny. But to its intended target, that person knows it's anything but innocent. So now let's look at an example to understand this one a little bit better. At a holiday party, a wife mentions to the guests how her friend Stacy's husband always plans the most thoughtful birthday surprises for Stacy. She jokes about how she'd love to experience something like that. To the other guests, it seems like a harmless comment about admiring someone else's romantic gestures, but they don't have the full story. It's a common theme here, right? In typical narcissistic fashion, nothing is ever enough for this guy's wife, and she's not shy about letting her husband know it. In fact, he's been jumping through hoops to make her happy since they first met, and he rarely even gets a smile. So, feeling stuck in this place where he's trying as hard as he can to get her approval, and having her publicly shame him for not trying hard enough, the husband feels embarrassed, called out, and infuriated. But if he lets it show, he might look like he's jealous of the other guy. Or he might just seem unhinged. In this case, poor wife for having to go home with a husband like that, right? And here's one more example from a different perspective. Imagine a daughter excitedly telling her father about a really competitive internship that she's applying for. And he responds by saying, "Look at you, you're ambitious, just like your mother." And to everyone else who isn't in the know, he looks like a supportive father. But his daughter knows exactly what he means by that, and that it's the farthest thing from a compliment. You see, he's always going on about how her mother is a dreamer and tries for things that are way out of her league. And he says things like she should learn her place in the world. So basically, by making this comparison, the father is saying all the same things about his daughter without actually having to say them. Because if he actually said them, he'd look like a bad guy. But the daughter hears it exactly as it was meant. And she reacts as though he said exactly what he meant to say. But because no one else has this behind the scenes look, it looks like she's overreacting again and hates her father for no good reason. I mean, what a good guy he is, right? So the next dog whistle we're going to talk about is the subtle mocking jab. And to understand this one, I'm going to share one of my favorite phrases. The greatest truths are said in jest. And you can really tell a lot about a person by the jokes they make at your expense. You can certainly tell a lot about how they feel about you, that's for sure. Because usually, almost always, if not always, there's some truth behind what they're saying. They might be joking and they might be exaggerating, but they're probably not pulling all this stuff out of thin air. And when a subtle mocking jab is used as a dog whistle, there's usually something really hurtful behind the surface. So what's happening in public is just a small, tiny sliver of a crack that basically opens up to the Grand Canyon when you go a little bit deeper. So let's look at an example to make sure this one is clear. In front of friends, a girlfriend casually mentions her boyfriend's book club and how it must be so intellectually stimulating. But that's not really what she's referring to, and he knows it. In fact, it's not a book club at all. It's a poker game that he goes to every week with his friends. And she gives him a hard time about it every week too. But what's happening behind the scenes, it's not playful, it's not mocking, it's very real, and she's very serious. But when she talks about it to her friends, she makes light of it and calls it a book club. Maybe she does that because she thinks it'll sting, or maybe she does it for pretentious reasons. But regardless of her reasoning, he knows that she's subtly yet publicly shaming him for his choices while maintaining plausible deniability, which leaves him feeling attacked. And to make matters worse, he has no idea what she might have said to her friends when he wasn't around. It's possible that they even understand the book club reference better than he does. But he's in the minority here. If he reacts, he's going to look like maybe he can't handle a joke, or he's just being really sensitive. And this all serves many purposes. For one, it sets the stage for whatever narrative the narcissist may have about you. So when they transition to a smear campaign, everyone believes them because they've been laying the groundwork for months, maybe even years. Another purpose these dog whistles serve is to reinforce the narcissist's gaslighting. Being in a situation where the deck is stacked against you and everyone's looking at you like you're the problem, that's powerful. Even when you know, they don't know the full story. And so this will reinforce that gaslighting and have you believing that maybe you are the problem after all. And if that resonates with you, you're going to want to watch the video that's about to pop up on the screen, where I talk about even more ways a narcissist will make you look like the problem. Hopefully this can help some of you overcome the self-doubt that is so inevitable after a relationship with a narcissist. And before you go, like this video if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.